What is it exactly?
It's a mess. Hence why the comment about you need to wear an apron or a bead, because one wrong bite and you've got egg and beetroot all over you.
It looks like a crime scene.
It really does, right?
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies, because the best part of any trip is what you eat. I'm Brent Peterson, and this week we're in Auckland, New Zealand for a memorable Samoan meal and something called Hokey Pokey Gelato. My guest for this Kiwi food adventure is Elle-Armon Jones from the Big Foody. Elle is the brains behind the Big Foody at thebigfoody.com, a food tour company that takes hungry and curious travelers all over Auckland. I spoke with Elle back in 2023 about Auckland's food scene, the winemaking island of Waiheke, and much, much more. You can go back and listen to that episode if you like. It's really fun and interesting. It's episode 262. But Auckland's changed quite a bit in the years since, and I thought now would be a good time to talk to Elle again about some of the changes in Auckland, neighborhoods like Ponsonby and K Road, and some of the great places to eat and drink in the city. And I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Elle-Armon Jones from the Big Foody in Auckland, New Zealand. Welcome back to Destination Eat Drink. It's such a pleasure to get to talk to you again.
Thank you so much. Hasn't time gone so quickly?
I know, hard to believe. It's been a few years since we had you on. And back when I had you on the first time, you talked about so many cool places in Auckland, a city that I love. But you also said Auckland's a rapidly changing place. So I thought now would be a good time to come back and talk to you again. What's new in Auckland since the last time we talked, Elle?
Well, it feels just a completely different city. We were coming out of that ghastly COVID era. Everything was a bit slow and we were still in the middle of mass construction. So that's slowly, but nearly all finished. We've got our convention centre opening this week, which is exciting. So we're going to have some big conventions coming into Auckland, which is really making it vibrant. We've got the inner city rail link finishing off, which means the suburbs and the outer parts of the city are all going to be much more connected, making it a lot easier for people to get out and get into hospitality venues and go out eating and drinking. So these are all projects that have been taking a long time to come to fruition. And now that's the sort of major stuff that's happening in the city. So Auckland has, I've said this for 20 odd years that I've lived here. It felt like a gangly teenager 20 years ago. It's beginning to feel like a really fantastic international city with food to boot.
Yeah, when I was there in 2018, they call Auckland the city of sales. And and that's a well-deserved nickname, but I called it the city of cranes because it seemed like everywhere was under construction. And now you're finally seeing the fruits of that labor. So that's great, which only means one thing. I got to get my butt back to Auckland sometime soon.
Yeah, you do. And there's really fun stuff happening. We've got, this coming weekend, we've got Sail GP. So we've got sailing out in the harbour again. There's big festivals going on. There's lots of international music acts. It's a great place to be.
You guys do lots of tours in Auckland at the Big Foody, and one of my favorite neighborhoods in Auckland is Ponsonby, and you guys have a tour where you take guests there. But talk a little bit about that neighborhood of Ponsonby. What's it like, and what can folks see and do when we visit there?
Ponsonby is, I'm a little bit biased at the moment because we do have a tour up there, and I've been doing a lot of work and a lot of research in the area. It's a street of a hell of a lot of brilliant food. There's amazing fashion. There's a couple of beautiful, 2 or 3 beautiful fragrance shops as well. A couple of very clever businesses creating New Zealand aromas and perfume. There's restaurants that have been there for 40 odd years, and that is no mean feat in any city, but in a city like Auckland where it's forever changing, just to have some of those restaurants that have been there for that long. One in particular is a Thai restaurant. There's shops that have been going, food shops that have been selling there since the 1930s that have only changed ownership in the last 10 years. So it was an area that was really developed in the early 1900s for people to live in, because the city was growing, the labour force, the middle class was getting bigger, And so there's some wonderful stories as you walk along the ridge of Ponsonby Road and look down some of the streets off it. You see the original villas. And a historian was telling me that there was one in every fourth house was built by the same architect. So you had sort of four houses and then the next four houses. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. They look totally different now, but there's something wonderful about getting to learn how this suburb has developed. And it's now very much an affluent city centre suburb, but the food is so much fun. The owner operators that we work with are brilliant. And it is changing and it is nice seeing second generations taking over those businesses.
I like going into a food hall when I visit a city. We just got back from France and man, they've got some great food halls there. But I remember going to Ponsonby Central. That's a pretty cool place. I had some good food there. We ate at a place called Bird on a Wire when we were there. That was good. And they got a lot of nice places there. Do you like going there?
Yeah, and it's definitely on the tour. And it's a brilliant concept, Ponsonby Central. It was an old government building that theoretically should have just been destroyed because it was ugly as hell. But a very talented architect and developer took it on and created that space. So yes, it's hospitality. There's some great retail in there. It's changed a lot in the last few years. It gave a lot of our food trucks a bricks and mortar base as well. So there was a couple of them that went out of that moving vehicle hospitality scene into bricks and mortar, and they're still there. We work with a brilliant family-owned, the only Cambodian bricks and mortar restaurant in New Zealand called Timpani's, which is a mother and daughter operator. And the food's fantastic, and that you can't get Cambodian ingredients into New Zealand very often. So they're making a lot of their noodles and their spice mixes, and that's really exciting. And I absolutely adore what they're doing. They're bringing their flavors of home right into our doorstep.
That's one of the big advantages of these food halls is that you can get in for a relatively low cost. In other words, there's a lower barrier of entry than getting a standalone restaurant where you've got to do everything on your own. These are existing places. You can open a smaller place and kind of get your feet wet. So that's another reason to love these food halls. And other bigger restaurants, they can do smaller outposts at these places too. So good on them. Like it.
Yeah, we've got a couple of venues in there now that have got other destinations in the city. Pyrola being one of them, Dante's Pizza, which is award-winning, internationally award-winning pizza, and a couple of others. But I mean, one of the places we love and we work very closely with is Mian, which is a chocolatier, an ice cream maker, and a dessert restaurant. And Brian is from Scotland, Roselle is from the Philippines, and between them and their team, they just turn out some of the most delicious desserts, the most incredible chocolate, and amazing gelato. So you can have an entire meal just pottering around Ponsonby Central quite happily.
You mentioned gelato. What is the name of the famous New Zealand ice cream that has the toffee in it?
Hokey Pokey.
Hokey Pokey. Hokey Pokey.
Yeah.
That's it. I'll bet you Hokey Pokey gelato is pretty awesome.
Oh, it's funny, actually. I bought some. We had a bunch of cruise guests out at Vineyard Cottages yesterday, and I decided to we usually do pavlova, and I decided to add Hokey Pokey ice cream to it yesterday purely because I wanted some. I forgot how good it is. Never eaten it. It was delicious.
Oh, you mentioned pavlova. That's another famous New Zealand dessert. You want to talk a little bit about that?
The whole argument is that New Zealand is it Australian? No, it's a meringue with cream and fruit on it. It was developed by a French chef for the beautiful ballerina Anna Pavlova, and the whole concept of the meringue was that it looked like the tutu. So this time of year, to be totally honest with you, I'm sick to death of pavlova because we make it every single day. I have 75 coming here for lunch tomorrow. So we have about 48 eggs arriving very shortly to be whipped up into pavlovas. So there's nothing more beautiful than a light, fluffy pav with beautiful fresh cream and seasonal fruit. And it's, we're very lucky out here with the Kiwi region where I'm based. We have huge strawberry exporters and local growers. So our strawberry fruit's amazing. Tomorrow we'll be having blueberries and plums because my plum trees are groaning with fruit and need them picked today. But I went home for Christmas to the UK and did a winter pavlova with poached pears and cinnamon and chocolate sauce and cranberries, and that was divine. It's a slightly different take on it. So it is classically that beautiful meringue cream of fruit, but play with it. God, play with it.
You know, you said you had 75 people. I know that you have besides your tours, you have your own operation with your inn and your restaurant and all that stuff. I didn't realize it was such a massive operation. 75 people. You're cranking out a lot of pavlova as well as other stuff.
Yeah. Well, this particular tour that comes out to us at Vineyard Cottages is a real way to show off the northwest region of Auckland for food. And this area is very famous for its wine. It's where the wine industry really started in NZ. But we have multi-generation fruit and vegetable growers, great farmers. And so we pick people up in the city. We take them to morning tea at a local farm shop where they get to try lots of seasonal fruit and a couple of different slices. And, of course, our great coffee. And then we take them out to the West Coast beaches, which are, black sand, which is so unique. And we have a gannet colony out here too. And then it's back here for all the classics. So lots of cheese, olive oil, our honey from up in the vineyard from the beehives, salmon, lamb, pavlova. You couldn't get more kiwi, all washed down with local wine. And we send everybody off happy. So it's the team's arriving in about 2 hours and we'll get prepped for tomorrow.
If you're enjoying Destination Eat Drink, take a moment to rate and review the show on your podcast app. It just takes a moment, and it helps other foodie travelers like you find the show. And if you want to hear more of my conversation with Elle, become a member of my Substack. Members get access to longer versions of my interviews, and on this one, Elle tells me about the most unusual tour she's ever done and some of the unintended consequences of Auckland's hyper-growth, including some of the food-related losses in the city. Become a member of my Substack at destinationeatdrink.substack.com. I want to talk about another neighborhood in Auckland. This one is called K Road. And when I was in Auckland in 2018, K Road was kind of the other end of the spectrum from Ponsonby, in that it's a little more grungy, a little more... I don't know, maybe a little more real. I saw, different kinds of shops that you would not see in Ponsonby. I wonder, has this neighborhood begun to gentrify with, Auckland getting wealthier, or does it still have its awesome character that I enjoyed so much when I was there?
No, it's definitely got its awesomeness. I don't think everybody will tell you that K Road's gentrified over the years, because cities and areas do, but there are still the people, there are still the restaurants, there's still the quirk that we just love about it. And the food gets better. The dining scene, especially areas like St. Kevin's Arcade, which has got lots of little restaurants, and it's not a food hall, it's an old arcade, old villa that was redeveloped. Just spectacular. The food is fun. Everybody's friendly. A street down on Cross Street, which we talked about, I think, last time, with Miller's Coffee. We have the brilliant Carlo, who has Bar Magda, his Filipino restaurant. It's underground, it's downstairs, it's his flavors of home that he represents in amazing food, brilliant cocktails. And then you back up on K Road for the likes of Apero, which is just Mo and Leslie are a phenomenal couple in the hospitality scene. He's front of house, knows wine inside out, back to front. She's in the kitchen with her tiny team, and the food they pump out is phenomenal. It's always busy. It's always brilliant to see it. And I don't think, he's one of the few places in town I can just say to him, put the wine on the table, because he really knows what he's doing. It is such a fun street to be in. St. Kevin's, I mentioned earlier, peachy, great Italian, great little cocktail bar. Opposite it, there is an amazing Lebanese, which name completely escaped me. I'll come back to me. Amazing street, which just divine, a real place to go with a bunch of people and just sit and eat. Vesti Cafe during the day. There's always something changing. There's always something new. But K Road will always have that wonderful quirkiness to it.
We just got back from France, and man, I was surprised how much great Lebanese food we had when we were there. There was a street food place in Antibes, and the guy's from Lebanon, and he makes the sesame bread that they hang in Lebanon. They hang on these hooks, and they sell it in the street. He does a different version of it. It's the same kind of sesame bread, but he cuts it open and makes sandwiches out of it, which is, I guess, something they don't typically do in Lebanon. So he's got his own twist going on it. But man, I fell in love with so much great Lebanese food when we were in France. So good.
Yeah, I think it's the joy of migration, isn't it? people
Yes.
bring their flavors and their traditions and recreate them in the environment they're in. And that's what food's all about, and sharing it with people is the most important thing. It's why we do what we do.
Sure. And that's what makes it interesting, discovering these different kinds of cuisines. And speaking of which, Italians, they've been coming to New Zealand since the 18th century. And, wherever the Italians arrive, they bring their food with them. What's the Italian culture and food like in Auckland?
Oh, it's awesome. We don't have the same sort of Italian numbers that there is over in Australia and Melbourne, but we certainly have a great food scene when it comes to our Italian food, and new restaurants from when you were here back in 18. Down in the city, we have Bossy, which is just brilliant. And up in Ponsonby Road, we work with Farina, which has probably been going about 12 years now, I suppose. Both of which were named and this is something for listeners, if you're coming to New Zealand, we have a brilliant system, a brilliant competition in Auckland called Iconic Eats, which is run by the local economic and tourism development side of the council. And every year we invite Aucklanders or people in Auckland to name their favourite dishes in the city in this competition. And there's not just naming the dish, it's also a description why. And last year there was over 4,000 entrants. And it gets whittled down to a list of about 100. So if you're coming into Auckland, there's a publicly voted list of, 100 places, 100 dishes to go and eat. And both Bossy and Farina were on it last year, as well as a couple of other Italian restaurants. But yeah, Italian's done good. We've got some brilliant restaurants out in the suburbs as well that are popping up in the likes of Bianca and Ellerslie is one, which is just a little bit too far for me to go daily, but I would go daily. The bread is amazing. And when you're looking at the Italian culture, you can't really go past Giappo and Ana Rosa at Giappo ice cream. They are
amazing spot
with what they do with gelato. Yeah, but they've now also branched out because Ana Rosa is celiac. Everything's always been gluten free, but they're now doing a gluten free side of the business as well with cafe food too. So that's sort of given what they do a little bit extra, which I just love. It's brilliant.
So lots of Indian people in Auckland too. I'm sure we can get some really good Indian food, right?
Yeah. Well, I think when I started the business 15 years ago and was doing all the statistics and learning about the different cultures in the city, something like 8% of Aucklanders at the time, we are going back, were of Indian origin, whether that was Fijian Indian or subcontinent Indian. So great Indian food. We used to have amazing spice markets, which are in different formats now. And you can, areas like Sandringham, there are a couple of people who do brilliant little food tours around there, which food is just phenomenal. Paradise restaurants around Auckland, divine, absolutely delicious. There's a number of others as well, but we've also got that sort of finer dining end of the Indian restaurant scene as well with Cassia at Sky City, and 1947 a bit further down Federal Street, which is fun, amazing gin cocktails, vibrant food. There's a great new restaurant called Goat on Wyndham Street. His dishes are just delicious. So you can't really go too far away from just brilliant Indian food all around the city.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Portugal had Indian colonies for a long time. I mean, I think their most recent one was even in the 1960s, as recently as that. And because of that, you can get brilliant Indian food here in Portugal. And I always tell people, when you come to Portugal, of course, you're going to want to eat all the traditional Portuguese dishes. But, if you get tired of that after a while, look in any town, you're going to find a great Indian restaurant because the Indian food here is so, so good. Whenever I go to a new city in Portugal, I always make a point of looking for Indian food, and I am very rarely disappointed.
I know when I first came over 23 years ago, I used to laugh because there was a couple of Indian takeaways that were suburban and the flavors varied on the color of different orange in the sauce. And I remember thinking, you haven't come from the UK, oh my God, this is terrible. But having been back to the UK a few times recently and back into Auckland, I think we're giving the UK a bit of a run for money when it comes to brilliant Indian food.
Well, that's saying something, because there's great Indian food and Pakistani food all over the UK. I mean, whenever I go there, I always, again, I make a point of getting really, really good Indian food. You find it everywhere. That brings up a point that I'm thinking about, Elle, and that's, in England, in London specifically, but all over England, a lot of these Indian places, you go into a pub and they'll serve a curry. Or you're seeing these different kinds of fusions, like curry with chips, and things like that.
Chips and curry sauce is a thing. Chips and curry sauce has always been, growing up, it was what you had from the kebab shop or from the Chinese on the way home from a night out. It's
amazing.
Very much there.
It's so good. So I'm just wondering, in Auckland, as you get these cultures that are coming in, these immigrant communities, are you seeing any of that kind of cross-pollination, whether it's Italians or Indians or Malay people or whoever? Is there any of that going on, or are people staying in their own silos?
Oh, no. We're completely multicultural. Yes, we've got pockets of areas on the North Shore and in East Auckland where there are bigger populations of different nationalities, but that's families moving together and people migrate to where they know and where they're recommended. But I think it's something that we get asked and we talk about a lot with touring, without getting political. We're an exceptionally welcoming country. I'm an English migrant. I've just landed here, but we are a very welcoming country, and there's not a huge amount of tensions. And so that's I think very, very refreshing. And we're very lucky with the food scene that people are so adventurous that they want to bring their flavors to the table, and it gets accepted and talked about. And that's how communities stay together and how people stay together is sharing each other's experiences and culture. And I just love it. I went to a restaurant about 14 months ago, and I really must go back, which was a Samoan restaurant called Tala, which has gone on to great things. And I was with a great New Zealand food writer and a good mate of ours, and I left wanting to know so much more about Samoan food culture and history, because that experience of what Henry had put on the table in front of us just absolutely blew me away. And to this day, I still think about the stories that they shared from his childhood and how that was represented in the food. And so that's what I love about being here, is that it's just such a mishmash and an opportunity to consistently learn through your taste buds.
Tell me about this meal. It sounds like it was life-changing, Elle. What's Samoan food like? I don't know that I could tell you.
Yeah, well, I don't think I could tell you before this. It was, the thing that Henry did at Tala and still does is express his childhood on the plate. And that was, for me, there was stories of history of the Chinese being in the Pacific, the Americans being in the Pacific, stuff that is sort of new on the outside. But after listening to what his staff and his wife and what Henry was telling us as the meal was presented, I just went and read books, and I loved it. I love that expression of love. It's what Carlo does with Bar Magda as well, of bringing you home onto a plate. And the Pacific is our closest neighbours. We've got Samoa and Fiji and Tonga, all of them are close by. And not necessarily growing huge amounts of different foods. There's lots of fruit, etc. But how the influence of people being stationed in the Pacific had influenced Henry's childhood and growing up and the Pacific. It was just amazing.
There's lots more food and travel at destinationeatdrink.com. I just published a brand new food and travel guide to Ravenna, the amazing medieval city in Italy. But there's more to Ravenna than just medieval churches filled with stunning mosaics. There's also great food, including a unique flatbread and a seafood festival. Read a free excerpt at destinationeatdrink.com/blog or download your ebook at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. And speaking of Ravenna, I just posted a brand new story about Ravenna's pasta called capelletti. It's a little hat pasta that's super tasty, and you can read about it and see the yummy pictures at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. I also just posted a brand new video. This one is from Nice, France. There's a street food in Nice that's delivered on a bicycle. There's a beer made from chickpeas and a sweet dessert made with a surprise ingredient. Watch that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or head over to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink946. When we were in Christchurch, one thing that I saw there a lot of was Chinese/Malaysian food. These are ethnic Chinese people who lived in Malaysia and had to immigrate, were politically oppressed for whatever reason and had to leave. And a lot of them immigrated to New Zealand. And I ran across a lot of great places in Christchurch. Can you also get good? I have to imagine you can get really good Malay food in Auckland as well.
Absolutely. Great Malaysian, great Indonesian, great Thai. You name it, we can get it. One of the families I knew right from the onset being here were a Lao family who had come over as refugees. And they introduced me to all kinds of different flavors that I had never even dreamt of. So we've lost a lot of our original food halls with development of the city, but quite a few of those families have either moved out into the suburbs and recreated, or they're just in different areas. So if you're coming to Auckland, there are some great Facebook pages like Lazy Susan, who the knowledge of the locals on those Facebook pages, you just ask what you're looking for and people will give you 15, 16, 17, 20 billion different options.
Awesome.
And it's personal choice as well, which is fantastic. And I think the thing that I love seeing at the moment is just the spectrum of, you can still eat reasonably cheaply, and yet you can still eat in places that are reasonably pricey, whether it's Chinese, Malaysian, Indian. There's a spectrum of going out opportunity there.
Whenever I do one of these interviews, I always do a lot of research. And even if I've talked to someone before, like I've talked to you before, Elle, I still find new things that I discover about a city and about its cuisine. And in this case, I ran across something that I wanted to ask you about because I hadn't heard of it before. I didn't see it when I was in New Zealand. I wasn't even looking for it, so who knows? But it's called a kiwi burger. And it's, so first of all, let's set the stage. It's not made with kiwi, those cute little birds. It's not made with kiwi meat,
No.
But it is called a kiwi burger. What is it exactly?
It's a mess. It's an apron wearing mess. A kiwi burger is very much a family thing. I think McDonald's might have done it for a few years, or Burger King. It's very much a family barbecue, make your own burger. So you have your patty and then you just layer it with whatever. And that whatever can include bacon, obviously, cheese, obviously, a fried egg, beetroot, lettuce, tomato. The first one I had 23 odd years ago at a family friend's house, and this plate of food arrived for us to layer on top of the burger buns. And I just, beetroot in a burger.
Yeah.
Egg. It's just hilarious. And now there's onions, you name it. So it's basically piling your burger full of all the additional flavors you want. And it works. It really does work. Don't ask me how beetroot and egg and a burger is going to work, but it really does.
That's when I read this on the website that I was checking it out on, I was like, okay, fried egg, I understand, because here in Portugal, they put fried eggs on everything. Everything has a fried egg on top of it. But then I saw another ingredient was beetroot, and I thought, now they're just screwing with me. Now they're just making fun of me for reading up on this thing. This is something they do to trick tourists. But you're saying it exists and it works.
Yeah. Hence why the comment about you need to wear an apron or a bib, because one wrong bite and you've got egg and beetroot all over you.
It looks like a crime scene.
Beetroot, it really does, right? And having grown up in the UK where pickled beetroot was one of the most despised smells of my childhood,
right?
Beetroot here tastes nothing like that, and it's not overly vinegary or overly pickled, so you end up with a sort of nice layer of sweetness against that saltiness of bacon or cheese and the meatiness. So it does work. It really does work. But yes, I've seen a lot of people sort of look at it and say, oh, why would you do that? And funny enough, I don't know whether you've also read, but Michelin's coming to New Zealand this year. So we've had the Michelin judges in and around the country. And we will hopefully have finally the Michelin Guide starred restaurants here in New Zealand, which would be amazing. And I was joking to a couple of the tourism peeps and hospitality people that, are we going to have a kiwi burger that's starred and a mince and cheese pie that's starred? If it's good enough for hawker food in Asia, do we get mince and cheese pie, starred Michelin awarded pies? We'll see.
I was buzzing around your website prior to us talking, Elle, and I noticed you guys are up and running in some other cities in New Zealand. Where else are you guys offering tours when people come to New Zealand?
So brilliant team down in Wellington. We have a lovely morning tour in Wellington called Capital Bites, which is great fun. Brilliant team. We've got a new cocktail tour starting in Wellington in the evenings as well. Christchurch is about to go onto the website. We've been doing a lot of private tours in Christchurch. Dunedin, which I just adore. I shouldn't say how much I love it because I'm Auckland based, but boy, I love it. We've got great producers down there. We work with an amazing butcher who has a lovely sustainability story. We work with a couple of ladies who are making gin out of bread. Yes, you did hear me right. They're making gin out of bread.
Whoa.
So they have they've repurposed about 14 tons of bread so far and turned it into gin. So the moral of that story is drink gin, save the world. Incredible fish and chips. A haggis tasting because it is the Edinburgh of the South. Salted caramel whiskey, brilliant gelato. It's a great little city. And if you're traveling around New Zealand and you think about missing Dunedin, I will highly recommend that you don't, because the history there, the industry there, the beauty of that region is absolutely stunning. We've been exporting lamb and butter out of Dunedin since 1882. So it's a real start in the food story of export for New Zealand. And it is just a fun place to stay. Great beer, great gin, lots of great gin. Not just those ladies, but another company we work with. A Frenchman took his family knowledge in distilling and set up Number 8. And there's another brilliant Sandy Mount gins out on the peninsula. And he is growing all his own botanicals to go into the gin. So while gin is very much in that sort of up and up and up and will probably come crashing down at some point, I'm certainly recommending as much of it as possible because it's brilliant.
Great. Well, that's so exciting too. I mean, I've been to Wellington and I've been to Christchurch and I love both of those places. And I'm guilty. I did not go to Dunedin when I was in New Zealand. So again, moral of the story, got to get back to New Zealand. But I would love to have you back on the show, Elle, to talk about some of these other places because I love talking New Zealand and I would love to talk about your new tours in these cities. Would you come back and talk to us in the future?
I would very much love to do that. That would be great.
Well, thanks for being on this show. It's been exciting to catch up with you and learning a lot more about Auckland, which just goes to show there is so much to do in this exciting city. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for the invite again. It was lovely to catch up.
Okay, that's Elle-Armon Jones from the Big Foody. So glad I got to talk with her about all the things she has going on. You can book a tour at thebigfoody.com. Her website also has information about her inn, the Vineyard Cottages. Definitely should be a part of your New Zealand adventure. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, we are in Bordeaux, Emilia-Romagna, and the country of Georgia and Sweden for some of the most delicious wines from around the world. Subscribe to Destination Eat Drink so you don't miss that. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson, and I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.